Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games number 45, the Anthony Bass episode. RIP is not even on the Cubs anymore. He went to
the Michael Jordan on the White Sox.
The Michael Jordan on the White Sox episode. There you go. That's better. This is the last, our first episode of 2019, I guess, of this Chicago Cubs baseball podcast with a couple of comics in New York. I'm Kevin, and I'm here with Adam via Skype. What up?
How you doing?
I'm fine. How was your holiday run?
It was pretty good. I didn't do a lot of performing, but that was kind of nice.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it was good. I just did our listener Tom Dog's show on Saturday up in Schenectady, New York, which was great. He was not there; he was down in DC. But shout out to Tom. Yeah,
he runs great shows.
And you had one of our loyal listeners come out to a show, did you not?
Tyler, the pastry friend. Tyler came out to Mason City with his family, with his brother and parents, and it was great. They did get sat completely like front center. Seat table, which was totally fine because neither myself nor the two comics that preceded me were the type of, just point in the crowd and be an idiot kind of, kind of people. So that was nice. And it was I did a club called Mason City Limits, which I've done each of the last 3 holiday seasons now, where it's an extremely small club. It is definitely the smallest city I've seen support like a multiple night comedy club.
That's great though, if they do.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know what people do. I don't know like what job exists there. There's like one block, and then there's houses about a block in each direction, and then it's them farmers.
So how small are we talking? Like 50 seats?
Yeah, it's about 50, I think. But it was fun. It was a good time, and I saw Tyler and saw that he wasn't even the only podcast listener. Which, by the numbers, I'm looking at the downloads, and it would be exceedingly unlikely to run into different podcast listeners who don't know each other in Mason City. But there was another guy named Mike as well who But it was who has listened to the podcast. He actually knows me from doing stand-up, but he listens now. So that was it. That's neither one of us went to Anthony Rizzo's wedding, so that's a disappointment.
No, I wasn't. I did get an invite, but I just wasn't able to go.
Yeah, that's fair. That is, scheduling is tough, I guess.
It looks great.
Yeah. Did you see a decent amount of the pics and Insta things?
Well, it's always like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, they're just like normal people at a wedding. Like I'm sure it was a great fancy wedding, but it's like, oh yeah, there's like photo booths, but they're just famous people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was looking at like Jess Bryant's Instagram story, and I was like, yeah, that looks like any other one of my friends at a wedding. I
think that's the thing where it's like not only is it just like any other person at a wedding, but it's also any other person who's like sort of our age. Right. It's like a very us aged wedding. I think with the
totally
with the playlist and just I
always wonder though with athletes, like how do you choose who gets invited from the team? There's gotta be some hurt feelings.
I do feel like that. It's almost. Speaking as someone who didn't invite a lot of my family to my wedding, it does seem almost even trickier to like not invite everyone from your team.
But weirdly, you did invite Brandon Kinsler to your wedding.
I did invite Kinsler, and he was a twin at the time. I just like a hard ground ball pitcher. But yeah, fun photos and Insta stories to see.
That's great.
For sure.
Oh, that reminds me. I was going to ask when you said that Tyler was sitting up front. Have you had that happen before, where like either you're like mom or like your wife or something gets seated up front against their will, and then like other comics are harassing them?
Have you?
Yeah.
I feel
very weird.
It's very weird, and I think, I do feel like that's probably a staple to a comedy life, is that happens at some point. How about you? Any notable?
The one I mean, it's definitely happened before where, because Allie is like not, she's a very good. She's a good judge of comedy, but that also means that it's harder to get her to laugh. So
sure.
Like, if she doesn't think something's funny, she's just not going to laugh at it.
Right. She's married to a comedian. She's been to many shows. She's been around comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a show actually when I was in Chicago at some point, doing one of the rooms there, where there was some comic who was just like super abrasive on stage. And I don't remember what he called her, but he definitely like cursed her out for not laughing.
Jesus Christ!
And then I had to go up. I think I like talked to him after, and I was like, "Yeah, that was."
1 second.
No worries.
I got too many cables here. Got caught up. Knocked one out. Okay, so, sorry. Go ahead. He said something to her for not laughing. I'll edit this in.
Yeah. No, it was on a show in Chicago, and she was just sitting there not laughing at things that weren't funny, as normal people
Perfectly
do.
perfect. Yes, that is beyond acceptable. That is what you should do.
Yeah, and I think at some point he was just like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" Or it's just something that was,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but my favorite one, this was just more funny than it was like inappropriate. So I did a show. Have you ever done that show in Frederick, Maryland? It's called like The Cellar Door.
No, but I know I've seen it
great.
posted.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But I was doing a show, and it happened to be Easter Sunday, and my wife was with me. But her friend that she like grew up with, this guy Josh, his parents live in the area, so he was like, "Oh, like I'm home for Easter, like we'll all come to the show."
Yeah.
So the way that's set up though was that it's this guy Josh and his parents sitting with my wife at a table of 4.
Yeah.
So one of the comic that opened for me starts talking to them, and it's like, "So what's the deal? Like you guys like dating or are you married?" And it's one of those things where like she knows that I would rather she doesn't say like, "No, I'm married to the guy who's headlining this show."
Right, even though that would be a real quick shutdown. Yeah.
Exactly, because it seems like it would be distracting.
Right.
So they just kind of kept like not completely answering, and were just like, "Oh, this is my friend." And he wouldn't let it go. He's like, "So you're bringing your platonic female friend out to dinner with you and your parents on Easter?" And it was very funny. He wasn't like being mean about it.
Right.
So then I got on stage and I was like, I have to just explain what's happening here, because in defense of that comic, if I saw a supposedly straight guy with a girl who he claimed to be his friend out with his parents on Easter, I would be like, is this like the last Easter before you finally come out to your parents? Like, what is...
Yeah, this is the Easter thing really nails it down. Right. I think Easter and the parents does make it a weird scenario. I am... Yeah, at first I started very anti that comic, and then, okay, all right, fine. I am anti just pointing at any couple in the crowd and going, what's the deal with this? What's the deal with... Everyone's fucking hundreds of thousands of comedians have done that and no matter what the answer is, it's always like, oh, we're on a date. Oh yeah, what number date are you gonna have sex after this one? Like there's always, it's just such a terrible, corny.
And then just
beginning.
After that, you hear a siren outside, and you go, "Oh, there's my ride."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Then it's just a 2-minute set, and you're done. Cool. Well, that's fun. That's that's a fun holiday for all of us. And that, and nice to see people who listen to the show out there live too.
Yeah, and by the way, I listened to the episode that you did with your brother, and it was good.
Oh, thank you.
I think I could be easily replaced.
Well, we're not doing tryouts here. We're not.
I think he's the Raul Ibanez who I'm feeling on the hot seat if he's my bench coach.
There you go. That's great time. Yeah, that where it's not. There's nothing on paper that he's coming on permanently, but he's bringing a little bit more of a resume than most bench coaches.
He got his chance and he stepped up.
Yep. Yeah. No. Joe McCaffrey's a knowledgeable baseball fan and a good broadcaster. It was fun. But I guess it's been like 3 weeks since we did a live one, since we had the flashback episode last week on Christmas week. But let's get right to the main cool thing that's happened for you. I think a good New Year's resolution for us going forward. I want to get one of the players on this fucking podcast, but just short of that, this is the closest we've come. Tell us about it.
So if any of you hopefully follow us on social media at awaygamespod on things. I was in the Dominican Republic for a vacation with my wife, and like literally the only thing I had considered was like, well, I'm sure there are people down there who love baseball because I'm going to the Dominican, so the very least, hopefully I can like talk to some people about baseball.
Yeah.
Which is always fun.
Right.
And so we're down there for a week at this resort, and we get to talking to one of the employees who sells like excursions, like day trips, wherever.
Yeah.
And we decided that we wanted to do one. So we're just like talking to the guy. And then I went to go back to our room to get money to pay him for the excursion. So I come back, and Allie is standing there with him, this guy named Tony. And she's like, "Are you ready for Tony to blow your mind?" I was like, "Sure. What's up?"
Right. I've left my wife alone with Tony for 2 minutes. Exactly. Now there's a mystery.
What's Tony up to?
Yeah.
So Tony goes, "You know Randy Rosario?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I know Randy Rosario." He's like, "He's my cousin. You want to meet him?" And it was like that quick, where it was just like, "Yeah, he's my cousin. He lives 10 minutes from here. Like, do you want me to take you to his house?" I was like, "Is that an option? Like, can we?"
Yeah.
Does he want visitors? Like how
right.
How that?
If a cousin, if like a cousin of mine was talking to someone at their job and they were like, "Oh yeah, I love True TV's World's Dumbest" or something, and like, "Well, are you ready for me to blow your mind?" A guy from that is my cousin who lives 10 minutes.
Take you to his apartment?
I'd be like, "Fuck this! There's no way I'm answering the door.
Right.
I'm shutting off my phone." But I think that's a personality difference for me. But it probably also a cultural difference too.
Yeah, I think possibly that. And I also think he's like a young guy who's like very proud of what he's accomplished and is like genuinely happy when people are fans of his and like want to see his cool house.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's so famous that,
right.
He has people like clamoring to go over to his house all the time, probably.
Totally. Yeah. No, that could definitely be true. And that rules. And the fact, and he was around. This
he
happened.
Was around. Yeah, so initially there was a different plan, which in retrospect I'm glad did not happen. So he was like, "Well, why don't you he's hanging out tonight with someone from the Cardinals." And I was like, "Who's he hanging out with?" And he's like, "I don't remember. He's Dominican, but he's on the Cardinals and he's a batter." And I was like, "Okay, I'll have to look this up."
Yeah.
So it turned out it was Jose Martinez.
That was going to be my guess. Yeah, Jose Martinez. All right.
Yeah.
A tough matchup for Rosario, actually. Lefty on righty, and Jose's a lefty basher. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So he was like, "Yeah, he's hanging out with this guy from the Cardinals, and they're going to be like playing dominoes, and then they're going to a basketball game. Like, do you want to come?" And I was like, "Sure." But then, we kind of, it's one of those things where you're like agreeing to it in the moment. And then like Allie and I get back to our room and we're like, are we really about to like go out to some place that neither of us speak Spanish. We don't know anything about this country.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just like trust this guy from the resort and just go where he tells us to meet him. And so it turns out that didn't end up happening because I had to postpone the basketball game because one of the refs died.
Good Lord. Yeah, that was very respectful for them to push it back a week.
I sense that they probably would have played had they had a replacement ref, but I don't think there was one available.
Right.
So anyway,
serious games, not just calling their own fouls, getting real zebras involved.
Yeah. It was interesting. And also there was part of me, it's not like I'm not trusting of people, but anytime you're in that situation, you're like, I should probably be smart enough to not just take someone at their word and just venture off into the world.
Sure.
Without doing a little research.
Right. Although I'd be
the other part of me was like, who's making up Randy Rosario?
I know. I'd be pretty impressed if they went for that. You would think if they hear you're a Cubs fan, the first move is, do you know Sammy Sosa?
Exactly. Oh, my uncle is Sammy Sosa. Do you want to meet him?
Right.
Or whatever it would. Because that was funny to me, imagining that this guy has such a specific con that he waits for once every 3 years when somebody is such a huge Cubs fan that they know who Randy Rosario is.
Yes.
He was 2 years ago. He was conning Twins fans, and now he's conning Cubs fans. And once a year, he gets somebody off the resort and murders them.
Yeah, just as what a sneaky baseball nerd serial kidnapper
exactly.
we'd have on our hands.
The odds. Because even, I think obviously you and I are huge baseball fans, but I wouldn't know most players who are the equivalent of Randy Rosario on most other teams.
Sure, a guy who's towards the end of the bullpen and at the stage of his career where he's still trying to full-on establish himself.
Exactly.
And could theoretically be bouncing back between the minors and the majors.
Yeah. But anyway, so Tony had told us all this stuff about Randy's house and where he lived and all that, and so I looked up Randy's Instagram page, and sure enough, his location was 10 minutes away, and he had all these pictures of his new house that was exactly what this guy Tony had told me.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had like a new plan. He's like, all right, meet me at noon, and then like I'll call you a cab, and then I'll like meet you at this place. Because I guess the cab drivers get mad at him if he like takes their business by driving someone off the resort, something like that.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So anyway, cab driver takes me. This is like in the afternoon. Takes me to this like lagoon, like drops me off, waits with me because I was like, please don't leave me here. I don't know anyone. Yeah. Sure enough, Tony shows up in his car. He's like, all right, hop in. So we drive like 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden we're outside Randy Rosario's house. He's like standing right there, just like waiting for us. I guess he had to go somewhere. And so the weirdest thing about it was because you remember that night I had tweeted like, hey, so like I'm in the Dominican Republic from the Away Games account.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in the Dominican Republic, and apparently I might go to Randy Rosario's house later. Like, I'll keep you updated.
Right.
And when I got out of the car, he was like, you're the guy from Twitter, right? Did you tweet something about me? And I was like, yeah. But then there's part of me is like, oh, is he mad? Like, should I not have mentioned that?
Right.
But he was like, he seemed to like know who I was. I guess probably because you and I have tweeted about him, and he can't have that many mentions at any given time.
Yeah, I guess so, because we got on the Randy the Goat train pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was kind of cool that he seemed to know who we were. He was like, you have the show, right? And I was like, yeah. So.
Oh, that is weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So anyway, he had to leave to go somewhere in like 10 or 15 minutes. But he was like super friendly, speaks very good English, because I assume he's probably been in the States for a while now.
Oh yeah, at least.
I think he got drafted when he was like 16 or something like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, he's been around a bit.
But yeah, so he's like, well, I have to go, but like, do you want to see the house? And I was like, sure, yeah. So
that's incredible.
I go into his house. It's just me and him.
Yeah.
And he's just like giving me a house tour. He's like, all right, so this is the first floor, and this is where my mom lives, and here's the second floor, and this is where my sisters live and my cousins live.
Oh man, he's the man for this whole family. That is,
yeah. Like, so to back up before I even tell you like how this tour went, what Tony had told me about Randy was like, he's such a nice guy, and he's so humble, and he loves meeting fans, and like all he wants to do is play baseball and just take care of his family. And it honestly was really inspiring because like, I cannot imagine, like, it's a pretty rough place to grow up. Like, people do not have a lot.
Right. And
so Tony was like, yeah, it's so crazy. Like, he and I grew up, like, sleeping on the floor next to each other, and now he's pitching for the Cubs. But he's, like, seems to be a super level-headed dude. He's, like, I think he's 24.
Yeah.
He doesn't really drink. He'll have, like, a beer, but he, like, doesn't drink. He doesn't really party. Mm-hmm. And he, like, his only goal is that he wants to, like, look after his family.
Man, and it's incredible that he's already taking such a huge role that way, because as we know, if you follow any of the annoying finance like news of baseball, whatever, it's not news that minor leaguers don't make money. Like it is criminal how little minor leaguers are paid by these teams. And Randy was up with the Cubs for the majority of last year, and hopefully going forward as well. But it's not like this isn't a guy. I think people can easily fall into the trap of you see someone on a major league team and you're like, that guy's rich. It's like Randy's made money last year. He made good money last year, but it's not like this guy has millions in the bank or something.
And I mean, certainly the money that he's made goes a lot farther in the Dominican Republic than it does here.
Yeah, but he also has to live here.
And he's still on his rookie contract and has not had like a real deal yet, which hopefully he gets at some point.
Yeah, and already he's like, he's down there with what seems to be a very nice house with his with a bunch of family in it.
But I think he even told me, I could have been misunderstanding him, but he was saying like the money goes so much further down there that he built. It's like a 4-story mansion basically that I think he said cost him like $150,000 US.
Oh man, that's pretty sweet. For comparison, a 2-bedroom apartment in my neighborhood is around $700,000.
Exactly. No, I even said to him, I was like, man, if you tried to build this place in Chicago, it would be like $10 million.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I believe are there photos in our account, or was that just Insta stories that we?
No, I uploaded I think a video of me like on his roof.
Yeah, yeah, checking out the view, which looks lovely.
Yeah, it was wild. So, but yeah, Tony is like he just wants to take care of his family, and I guess his dad like passed away suddenly like right after he got drafted. So I think he felt all the reason to look after people. And he also I met his sisters, who are both like kids. They're like probably 10 and 13 or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's 24 if he's the older one, yeah.
So anyway, so he's showing me around the house. And he's like, this is where my mom lives. This is where my rest of my family lives. And he's like, oh, like, do you want to see some of my baseballs? Like, I save all the baseballs from like all my important games. And he's like, oh, this one was from my first win. And I felt bad because I didn't remember the game. I was like, I should have done research. But he's like, yeah, this was May 27th against the Giants. Like, do you remember that game? And I was like, I don't know if I remember. But then he was impressed because I remembered something specific about him. I was like, but didn't you save that game when Strope got hurt? Because remember that crazy Nationals game?
Right, after when Strope got hurt running to first.
Rosario came in and had a 1-2-3 inning. He's like, yeah, I have that ball. Do you want to see it? So he just had like a bucket of like framed baseballs or whatever that he was showing me. And he's like, yeah, here's my room. Here's my closet. Like, that's all my shoes. He had this like really cool closet with like all his like Jordans and stuff like lit up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he was like, all right, come on. I'll take you up to the roof. So we go up to the roof. I
love that you're doing Cubs Cribs, basically.
I know.
Which, I mean, on the new Cubs network, that should be a show. We already got a host for it.
Yeah. And I actually also, before I even went up there, the first thing he told me was like, oh, the new pitching coach just called me. And I was like, Hadavi? I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
I think that's it. I think it is pronounced Hadavi. Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And then I was like, what did you think of Jim Hickey? And he was like, it was okay.
Okay. All right.
It was funny. I don't want to, in case anybody ever listens to this who cares about the Cubs, I don't want to compromise anything that Randy said to me in confidence.
Yes.
But, it was interesting. He was being very diplomatic, but I could tell that based on certain things I was asking him, like, I could get a feel for like who he probably actually likes and who he doesn't like that much.
Among like players or coaches or everybody?
Players, coaches, because I asked him about Madden and he was like, yeah, he's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think, if I had to guess, it's like he's not really in Madden's circle of trust yet. So you're only going to feel so great about.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That,
Right. I think, and even though, that when players are called up and when they are sent down is as much if not more of a GM, thing than a manager thing, it still must be, it's still, I would think it would be hard to feel totally comfortable unless you're like, at the point where you're on the major league roster the whole year, because you don't know who's saying what or who's on your side, even if they're being totally cool to you. I totally get that.
So the craziest thing about it was I knew he had to leave soon, so I didn't want to be too pushy, but I also realized I had limited time with this guy, and the best way I could describe it, it was like baseball speed dating. Yeah. Where like I was just trying to ask him as many questions as I could about his experience with the Cubs and like specific things that I could think of before he had to go. So let me try to think of some of the things I asked him. So I asked him how he likes throwing to Contreras, and he said exactly what I think we would expect, which is that like basically like I love Contreras, but he takes strikes away from me because he hops up too quickly.
Yeah, and that's not controversial. He's just, I think all like many pitchers have said that, like, oh yeah, he's just, his energy level is incredible and part of what sets him apart as a catcher. But sometimes he's a little and he's like hyper.
He's like Caratini. He just sits right there with his glove.
Yeah, Caratini never moves. Good scouting report.
Yeah. I asked him about Hickey. I asked him about Madden, and then I was like, so what? I was like, what are your goals? Like, were you a starting pitcher at some point? Like, do you want to stay in the bullpen? Do you want to be a closer at some point? He's like, no, I don't need to be a closer. He's like, I just want to be on a major league team. And he was like, honestly, like, I just love baseball and I just want to keep playing baseball. And I just want to like take care of my family. Like, he even said that to me. He's just like, I just love playing baseball. And so we're up on his roof and he's like, come here, I'll show you something. And he like points down and he's like, that's the field that I practice on. And it's just this like kind of shabby baseball field.
Sure, it's a field like I forget if I saw it or not, but like you see a million fields like that driving through America. Like
exactly, yeah.
It's not like the fancy high school field in town or something.
Right. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I asked him, but yeah, it was very cool, and he was like super friendly and gracious, and was like excited that I like knew who he was, and seemed to like playing for the Cubs a lot. And at one point, I asked him, I was like, "Has it like sunk in what you've been able to do?" I was like, you grew up in this town, and now you're standing on the roof of your mansion, like take care of your family. Like, isn't that like, has that sunk in for you? And he's like, it's like, kind of, yeah, but like, I still have so much more that I want to do.
Right.
And I had asked him when he showed me the practice field, I was like, so are you able to play baseball down here in the off season? He's like, no, like I asked the Cubs if they would let me play and they said no. But they said it was because they had big plans for me.
Well, that's
like, oh, great. I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine he'll be on the roster opening day, right?
I mean, right now it would be hard to see how he wouldn't be. I mean, the bullpen. There are spots open in this bullpen right now, specifically like when we're talking about guys you'd bring in as lefties. Justin Wilson is not there, so you'd have to figure that bumps Rosario up a spot. In terms of in terms of the lefties in the pen, and they're as most Cubs fans, as everyone listening to this podcast right now is aware, Cubs haven't really signed much for the bullpen.
Yeah.
So I think as of right now, he would certainly be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, I would think so. But yeah, that was like mostly it. We went back downstairs. He had to go he was going to like Puerto Plata, which is like an hour away from there. Not sure what he was doing, but he's like, all right, well, I got to go, but like, do you want a picture? Like I didn't even have to ask him for it. He's like, you want to take a picture? So he took a picture. I asked him to sign one of our business cards.
Yep.
He was happy to do that.
Awesome.
And then he was on his way.
That's great. Hell yeah, Randy Rosario. What a good last beat of the year as a Cubs fan. It was so
cool, and it's like I'll never watch him again in the same way,
Right. Now you have an actual personal connection to this guy. You've talked to him. You've been to his friggin' house, and I think that relates to a larger way I feel about fandom, where and we've talked about it in recent weeks too, for worse reasons. But some people don't care about the people on their teams. They just want their team to be the best baseball players possible. The end,
right.
Win the games. I strongly feel that I want the players on my team to be people that I can root for and feel good about. That actually, as my brother Joe put it, he's like, baseball is an entertainment. It's an entertainment thing. So through entertainment, it enhances my entertainment value of it to feel good about rooting for these guys. Right.
And in the same way, I don't want to go see a Mel Gibson movie because I think he's a shitty person. I don't want to watch Addison Russell play shortstop.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And so it's super nice to have a guy like Rosario who so far, I mean, seems like couldn't be a nicer dude. And someone that you can now root for when you see him get called in, walking into that mound, you're a little more fired up than you would be otherwise rooting for this guy, even in like relatively meaningless games. You just want to see this guy do well and want to see him continue to stay in the major leagues, make money for his family, and take care of his little corner of the Dominican Republic.
Well, my biggest regret is that I didn't get to ask him why he chose Pelo Fino as his Players Weekend jersey.
Oh, that would be.
It means like nice hair,
fine hair. I think,
hair, which I think it's some sort of joke from some of his teammates.
Yeah,
it does seem like he has reasonably nice hair, so I guess it adds up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be GOAT next year, though. I think he's.
It should be. It really should be.
And from what you said about him really being aware of specific games and stuff, Randy's most recent tweet is. The NBCS Cubs Twitter account posted favorite Cubs games of 2018. The Cubs trailed 7-2 in the 6th, but came back to beat the Reds on July 7th. And then Randy just tweeted, he quote tweeted that and said, "I remember that game," kind of like smile emoji, sunglasses emoji. So I assume Randy did something pretty cool in that game.
I would have to look it up.
Yeah, I'd have to go.
But it's, I mean, because of the fact that this is, the main place in the Dominican that players are from is San Pedro de Macorís. That's like the hub.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But this area is it's kind of a more remote, like smaller area. I think the whole city itself is maybe like 20,000 people. So like everybody knows Randy Rosario there, and he's like this point of huge pride. So anybody that I talked to at the resort was like, "Oh, you got to meet Randy? Like he's such a great guy." And that was kind of the feedback that I got from everybody was like, "Oh, like he's going to go really far. Like he's like really smart, and he really, he's really responsible." And
right.
It was very cool. So then the adventure continues. So now Randy leaves in his car. Mm-hmm. By the way, I believe he drives a Honda Accord, so he's not like super famous.
Oh yeah, dependable. affordable,
exactly. Reliable.
Yeah.
But Tony told me, he was like, you know Strope? And I was like, yeah, I know Strope. He's like, Randy and Strope are friends. They're both Dominican. He's like, Randy threw Pedro a birthday party. And apparently Strope gave him some good advice, which is that Randy wanted to buy like a Jeep or Range Rover or some sort of like expensive car.
Yeah.
And Strope told him, like, no, like, first you build a house for you and your family, and then if you want a car, I'll buy you a car.
Oh, my God. What a guy.
I know.
No, that's it. I mean, I feel like this year, even though Strope's been on the Cubs for a long time, this year I feel like we started to hear more about the kind of leader he was and like and how respected he was in the clubhouse.
Well, and I'm sure, especially for like a younger Dominican player, he's really wanting to like take him under his wing. Because as far as I know, those are the only 2 Dominican players the Cubs have on their 25-man roster.
I mean,
which is surprising, actually.
Yeah, saying that without thinking about it, I would have my guess would have been a little more than that. But that is, yeah.
Well, yeah, because you think, I mean, there's a good number of like just
like
white
Latin players.
Dudes. Obviously, Hayward is African American, and then like Javi's Puerto Rican, Contreras is Venezuelan,
right? Caratini's Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, Randy leaves, and then Tony's like, "Do you want me to show you around?" And I was like, "All right, sure." So he takes me on this like little tour of his town. He shows me like all the nicest beaches, and he just seemed like someone who was like really proud of like where he was from, and
kind of a perfect resort guy, you know?
Oh my God, yeah, it was incredible. And really, like, he just kept saying, like, when you're on the resort, like, that's not the Dominican Republic. Like, you're just, you know, at
you're
a
at a hotel.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, I want to show you what the Dominican Republic is really like. And it was a very cool environment. Like, everybody there was super friendly and wanted to talk to me. And so he like shows me around these different like beaches. He takes me to this little beach restaurant. And I had probably the best piece of fish I've ever had in my life.
Great.
And the guy who owns the restaurant, who, in between trying to sell me various other carved wooden things,
sure.
Tony tells me, like, oh, I think his name was like Manuel or something. He's like, Manuel was a great baseball player. He was even better than Randy, but he liked to drink too much.
Tough break, Manuel, although I feel you.
So I got some info about this, and he was like making fun of himself. He didn't speak English, so Tony was like, it was like an I Love Lucy episode where Tony was like translating. So apparently this guy in like the late 80s was a great player and got a $10,000 signing bonus. Mm-hmm. And according to Tony, he got $10,000 and immediately spent it on rum.
That's a lot of rum. $10,000 in 80s rum?
Exactly.
Yeah, that is, my man is still kicking around some Admiral Nelsons from back in the day.
So funny. Yeah. So he was Admiral Nelson. That's a great reference. Just a clear knockoff of
Captain Morgan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Just a different rank, different name. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he was making fun of himself and saying like, oh, what are you going to do? Like, I was good at baseball, but I like to party.
Yeah. I mean, totally relatable. That's great. Yeah. And he's doing fine. He's got a place. He's got a restaurant.
Exactly. So Tony was telling me about like the other players that he's met and like some of the other guys from the Dominican. And then I was talking to him about the Cubs, and he was like, yeah, like we love the Cubs, but the one thing that makes us really upset is that they haven't done right by Sammy Sosa. And I was like, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Couple of SJWs, Sosa Justice Warrior over here.
Yes, damn, we really need shirts next year.
Yeah, I totally get that from his perspective. It's turned into a bit of a stronger pet peeve for me than normal with the Hall of Fame voting coming in lately and seeing the steroid guys starting to get votes, but Sammy not getting votes.
Yeah, how is he why is he not? Because he wasn't as good before his supposed steroid use? Is that the rationale?
Yeah, that's what they say, but you can do, I mean, this could be a whole episode on itself, but if I think my basic point, obviously Bonds and Clemens are arguably like at the very top of the position player and pitcher of all time conversations. So them getting in first, okay. But if we're talking anyone else who's been busted, and Sammy wasn't busted, but fuck that. We know he did stuff. Yes, right. Of course.
Cork bat doesn't help either.
What's that? Oh, the cork bat. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't. But it's like, you know, we've had guys like David Ortiz has been more officially connected to performance enhancers than Sosa, and I'm just saying that for argument's sake. I want Ortiz in the Hall of Fame too. Sammy Sosa has over 600 homers. If he had, if he's not in the Hall of Fame, and other steroid guys are, Sammy's specific steroid guy should be in the Hall of Fame. Totally. If he somehow had the greatest steroids of all time, better than all the other steroid guys, well, then put his roid dealer in the Hall of Fame if he can't be, because it's complete horseshit for him to be out.
Right, and you know what? If they really want to, and again, this really could be a whole other episode, but the one thing I'll say about it is that if they really want to be such sticklers about the integrity of the game, and they really feel the need to put up an asterisk or whatever explanation under these people's plaques that says, like, they were great players, but they were part of an era that there was a lot of steroid use, fine. But go ahead and put the same thing under Bud Selig's thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because he was complicit, too.
Oh, 1,000,000%. And... well, that's all the Hall of Fame. I think what you're saying about what the Dominican community was saying there, too, is, I don't think the Cubs have done right by Sammy Sosa either.
And
Talk about complicit.
Like, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Like, so for the Cubs, it's like, well, we were fine making an insane amount of money off of your fame, but because of the fact that you left unceremoniously,
right,
we're going to just give your number to Jason Marquis and whoever else wants to wear it. And like, even that, like seeing anybody wear 21 on the Cubs still bothers me. Yeah.
It's, to me, that's Sammy's number, you know? Yeah.
Even if they hadn't officially retired it, I feel like it should have been known in that clubhouse. Like, we don't wear that number.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that way too. Sammy was just about the only thing going for this team for a very long time. Although now
he's the reason that I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah,
that I care about the Cubs.
Right, exactly, and I think that's impossible to overlook. And yet the Cubs ownership and management have done it. And I think that's horseshit, and I can't wait till weirdo Sammy Sosa shows up at Wrigley Field again. And again, Sammy Sosa's bonkers. He's nuts. He's like, you know, he's a weird dude. I get it, but you know, you can't erase all that time. You can't erase that. What was it, like 11 or 12 years that he played for the Cubs and was during that time the thing to watch on that team. And a guy who busted his ass, played every game. You know, I feel like people feel like he has like a prima donna reputation. I get it from certain ways, but also the dude was at one point had the longest consecutive games played streak in the National League. You know, this guy, he busted his ass every day, and he was great. So I'm with the Dominican Republic on that one.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we sit there, we have like a little lunch, and then he takes me around the town, just like introduce me to people. And the one final baseball related thing that happened, which was kind of crazy, was he introduced me to this guy, this like kid, probably like, I don't know, in his early 20s. And it's like, oh yeah, this is my friend who's staying at the resort. He's a big Cubs fan. He loves Randy Rosario. So I took him to meet him. And the guy's like, oh, you like baseball? He's like, let me show you something. And so he takes out his phone and he shows me this picture, and he's like, this is me and Yordano Ventura 2 days before he died. I was like, holy shit.
Good Lord. Man.
He was like, yeah, like I was in that car, like I was riding around with him, like he's my friend.
He was in the car that crashed, just like,
the car that crashed. But
before,
2 or 3 days later. Yeah.
Good Lord.
So it was just a picture of him like hanging out with Ventura, and I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the details of that, of what, I don't think it was something as horrible as like the Valbuena situation.
No, it wasn't. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a murder, you know, it was, but yeah, it was.
He's a hell of a pitcher.
Yeah, he was had nasty stuff, you know. A tiny guy who threw 100, you know. Yeah, it is interesting hearing, because, you know, I think as an American, speaking for myself as a dumb American, like when my image of if someone goes to the Dominican Republic is everyone they talk to knows a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah.
But it's funny that sort of is, that has been your experience.
If not directly, they at least like tangentially know somebody who plays baseball, and they want to talk to you about baseball.
Right.
And so we ended up, that was kind of like the end of that day. And then a couple days later, because Allie hadn't come with me that day, she was feeling sick from too much gross buffet food.
Sure.
And he ended up taking us both around again to like show us the town and like let her kind of see what I had seen. And he apparently Randy Rosario was playing basketball that day, so I guess the Cubs can't prevent him from playing basketball. But he went down and like showed me that field that Randy like grew up playing on. And even that was like, it made me kind of emotional, honestly, to like just think through the idea of like this dude was playing on this like beaten down field, and now he's pitching in front of 45,000 people.
It's a really,
Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it's a really cool image just for like the possibility of future. You know, you see a place like that, and it doesn't look like anything special, but special things can come from anywhere, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then as we were driving, he was like driving us back to the resort, and we go past this little like auto body place, and he's like, "You see that kid working there?" I was like, yeah. And he's like, he throws 101 miles now.
It's like, shit, let's see it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't even get his name. I wish I had, because it would be interesting to see, like, if anything ever became of this guy.
Right.
He was like, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so. Like, he throws harder than Randy. Like, he's 17 years old and he throws 101. Like, he's going to be in the major leagues. And it's just this kid, like, working on, like, someone's dirt bike.
Wow. Yeah.
But to think about, like, that whoever that is, like, he could be there right now, and 3 years or 5 years from now, he could be pitching in the World Series. It's pretty wild.
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, guys who even let's give this guy a 4-mile-an-hour exaggeration because he's telling a story. Yeah. Guys who throw 97 at 17, even. I mean, those guys get signed. That guy, if that guy's not signed already, he'll play somewhere.
Speaking of which, I think I mildly insulted Randy because at one point I was where's your fastball? Like, your fastball usually sits around like 98, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I've hit 99 now.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, he sits more mid, but yeah. But no, I don't think that's insulting. If anything, I think I think that's nice.
Well, and again, like, he's someone who's like not famous enough that he probably does get a kick out of people like being interested and actually being fans of his and knowing who he is, who are American.
For sure. Well, it's like not to compare myself to the GOAT, Randy Rosario, but it's when people are talking to me about comedy and stuff, I think it's kind of there can be a similarity because, like, I'm on TV a lot and people assume that means you're just like made it, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, every time I'm on True TV, I get like $500 and then they can rerun it forever and nothing happens. Right. I don't see any more of that. So it's like, yeah, it's good. I'm on a lot. So that was nice for a very long time.
Unfortunately, you and I appear to both still be on our rookie contracts.
We've been on I'm a 36-year-old who's
not
like
even getting arbitration.
Nope, I'm not getting the guaranteed major league deal. I might have the split deal that Terrence Gore has. It's like I've gotten the Letterman appearance. That's like I made the playoff roster once, and then the rest of the time it's a lot of bounds. It's a lot of quadruple A shit. You know,
made the playoff roster the same way Jesse Chavez got his playoff game in.
Yep, got a game. Got it. Yeah, exactly. Showed up.
Here's the question: Are you more famous as a comedian than Randy Rosario is as a baseball player?
Oh, man. On the sliding scale, I don't know. I think it's a pretty solid comp.
Good comp.
Because it's
for the Randy Rosario of stand-up.
Yeah. Well, I think Randy Rosario is more famous than I am. For sure, just because, Cubs fans. Although I am looking, let me see, look him up real quick. But comedy, you slide that scale down a little bit. I do have 2 times as many Twitter followers as Randy Rosario.
There you go. So, that's pretty good.
On Twitter, I'm more famous, but that as we know, Twitter anything is not actually famous. I think that.
Well, if you're Randy Rosario, I think I'm like Anthony Bass or something.
There you go. But
I
also
got like a cup of coffee, but
sure. But had an extremely effective year, and as an appropriate on the Anthony Bass episode, who just signed with the Reds, by the way. That's great. Is there anything else Rosario story that we're missing? Because there's not a lot of Cubs news. So I think that's what that.
No. Yeah, I think that was mostly it. But if he ever listens to this, and maybe I don't know if he would respond to me, but maybe we can get him to do like a Skype episode. It would be cool if he would agree to that.
Oh,
Perhaps he wouldn't, or they're told not to even like do interviews, which is also possible.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is like to accidentally say something that you shouldn't say, and then you get in trouble with the team, I assume.
Exactly. Yeah. We do. The last thing we want to do is to get our new friend Randy in trouble. So yeah.
But in conclusion, he was could not have been a lovelier man, and I will certainly be rooting for him henceforth wherever he plays.
Hell yeah, go Rosario! Yeah, I'm excited to see him play this year. That's the best Cub in person meeting that we have between. I mean, it's gonna be hard to beat going to a guy's house and hanging out with him. Do
you think if I talked to him, like if I saw him like in the bullpen at a Cubs game, if I said something to him, he would remember, or think I was a weirdo?
No, I think so. I think he'd be like, "Hey, Randy, what's up? It's Adam.
I know your cousin Tony.
I know your cousin Tony. You walk me around your house." I think he would for sure be like, "Hey, what's up?" Yeah, totally.
Well, we'll have to try if we go to a game at Citi Field. We'll go down to the bullpen and see if we can talk to Randy for a bit.
Yeah, and if I see him at the Cubs convention, if I get an in, which I'll be at, I'll let him know that I'm with Adam, so I'm cool. But yeah, man, that's great. I mean, in terms of straight up Cubs news, literally, I think Anthony Bass signed with the Reds, so he's gone. There's not a lot. It's just the still waiting for the big people to sign.
Just still following Charles Meow to see what's new with Bryce Harper rumors.
Right, and I guess there was the big Dodgers-Reds deal where Dodgers were able to clear a lot of salary, sending Puig and Wood to the Reds, which makes the NL Central even more difficult. The NL Central and NL East are going to be incredibly difficult this year. The whole National League, and that's going to make the wild card very difficult.
And
too.
You have to think that Marty Brennaman is just going to love Puig.
Oh my God, yeah, it is.
Pull your pants up.
Yeah, what a great blessing unto that old piece of shit and his kid, Tom.
Tom.
Yeah, Tom. Those two dudes. Yeah, so that cleared a lot of salary, and it looks like.
Well, when I heard that, I thought like, oh, they'll sign Bryce now, but apparently that's not necessarily the case. It's more like they're just clearing space to clear space, and maybe they'll try to get like Kluber or something.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of like trading for Kluber, signing Pollock, possibly bringing Grandal back short term. Who knows? But I still feel like if I'm putting money on it, Harper goes to the Dodgers. That's that's my number one guess. And then I think the Cubs are right there after that if they do something creative. There's been the
Hayward and Happ talk, like trade them to the Giants or whatever. Who knows how realistic that is, but
yeah, that's just it's like a thing. I remember that rumor bouncing around last year.
Would you be on board for that if the Cubs traded Hayward and Happ to clear room and then signed Bryce?
I generally would be, although my real stance is that this team doesn't need to clear that salary. My real stance is that you sign Harper and Hayward should be your main center fielder this year. That's my actual stance is fuck you. This is fake. You don't need to move this money. So that's my actual. But if it took trading Hayward and Happ and then signing Harper, I do think that makes the Cubs better. And especially, and it gives the Cubs a better chance at a World Series the next 3 years specifically, which are the years I'm most concerned about right now. So yeah, I'd be in favor of that. Although I think actually moving Hayward is unnecessary.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, let's certainly get like Britton or somebody. I don't know. Miller's on the Cardinals.
Miller's a Cardinal now. So yeah, Britton's out there. Kimbrel's out there. Bryce, Manny, those are the big ones that are still hanging out. I think that's the top of the food chain in terms of what's out there. And Dallas Keuchel, there's there's a couple starters too, but
you're looking, I think, right now at a division where like if we're assuming that the Pirates and Reds are the worst teams. Those are still teams that can win 80 games.
Oh, I think the Pirates and Reds are clearly still the worst. But by worst, it's the thing with the standard deviation. If just the way luck bounces, either of those teams could be hanging around and a touch over 500. It wouldn't be crazy, especially if the Reds get another starter somehow, because their offense is good. So if they and they have a lockdown closer in Iglesias. Yeah.
And if the Cardinals were an almost playoff team, and now they have a full season of not Matheny, plus Goldschmidt and Miller.
God, missing Matheny. Yeah, totally. Not that like Schilt is some incredible genius, but anyone who's not Matheny is helpful. And yeah, Goldschmidt and Miller and Ozuna had surgery and should be healthier this year too. So the Cardinals, Brewers, and Cubs are going to be all really good. And I still think, as of today, the Cubs are the best on paper. So, but that is not an excuse for inaction from here on out. No. They should still attempt to be the best team they can be. That's my hot take. But yeah,
I like it.
Cool.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for we are recording this still in 2018. By the time people listen to it, it will be 2019. Mm-hmm. So I hope everybody has had a happy and safe New Year. Mm-hmm. And what else you got? Any words of wisdom?
No, man, that's all I got. Thanks for year one, listeners. Hey, and tell a friend. Tell a friend about the show if you like it. We've met a not insignificant percentage of our listenership in person now,
which is both good and bad, depending on how you.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we've had fun doing it. We're gonna do it all this year, all this upcoming year too. We're excited about it. It should be a great season. So hey, happy New Year, kids.
Yeah.
And follow us on Away Games Pod at Away Games Pod, Twitter, Instagram, awaygamespodcast @gmail.com. I'm Kevin. He's Adam. Thanks for listening, and go Randy Rosario, the GOAT.